Shadowland. They've got fire, they've got style, they make chaos look worthwhile. Partners in crime, heartbeats aligned, together they're one of a kind. They're the couple that slays together, storming the world, it's now or never. Back to back, through thick and thin, in the game of life they always win. Blazing trails, leaving legends behind. Love so fierce, it's one of a kind. We're the couple that slays together. Oh.
Welcome to The Couple That Slays Together. I'm Katie,
Hey, and I'm Brandon.
and this is episode number 1.
Episode 1, you guys.
We're reviewing Halloween
1978.
1978,
Yes.
the OG, the
Yeah.
original.
Now, I remember watching this later in life, obviously, 1978. I wasn't born yet. You weren't born yet. I watched this with my family. We as a family watched this all together. When did you first see this movie?
I was thinking about that when we were reviewing this. I really don't think I saw it until I watched it with you.
Really?
I think that the first Halloween movie that I can remember seeing was the Rob Zombie version.
Ah, okay.
And-
I hadn't watched that since we were together. I watched that with you.
Yeah. I saw that first. And then I think early on in our dating engagement, maybe, was the first time that I actually saw the Halloween 1978 first version. Now I've seen clips of it because it's in Scream.
Mhm.
So I knew that there were certain clips that I had seen, but to watch the full movie, I think it was when we were together.
All right, well, let's dive into it. So our plot summary, the small summary, is 13 years after murdering his sister on Halloween night, 1963, Michael Myers escapes from a mental institution and returns to Haddonfield to rain terror on the town. All right, so the subgenre for this film is actually, we have this as a slasher, a suspense, thriller-ish. This is a teen film, because obviously Michael's going after teens. So yeah.
You could also say that there's psychological in it too. The cat and mouse, him being behind, him kind of stalking.
Yep.
There is an aspect of psychological. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say it was like psychological torture, but it is very much playing on the psychological of your nerves.
Yeah.
And building the story.
This film, again, came out in 1978, written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, directed by John Carpenter. This film stars Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis, a big name at the time, and obviously forever after that. A young Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. PJ Soles played the part of Linda. Nancy Keys Loomis played the part as Annie. Sandy Johnson as Judith Myers, Michael Myers' sister. Young Kyle Richards as Lindsay Wallace. Brian.
Fun fact about her: she is actually Paris Hilton's aunt.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The film also stars Brian Andrews as Tommy Doyle, Nancy Stevens as Marion Chambers, John Michael Graham as Bob, and Charles Cyphers as Sheriff Brackett, who sadly died recently. I know we're going to be getting more into the interesting things of note, and we'll talk a little bit more into detail about this, but did you know that 5 men played Michael Myers?
Really?
Yeah.
In the first 1978.
In the first 70 film? Well, 4 men and a boy. So Will Sandon played young Michael Myers. And we'll get into the different roles of this, but Nick Castle, Tommy Lee Wallace, Tony Moran, and Jim Winburn all played Michael Myers in this film. The film opens with a first-person perspective, a chilling point-of-view shot, accompanied by Carpenter's haunting score. That was such an iconic theme. I mean, I've heard people use theme songs or ringtones of that on their phone.
Oh, yeah.
Epic song.
It's one of those, you only need a couple of notes and you know exactly what is being referenced. It's awesome.
Yeah. This takes place through the eyes of a mysterious figure through the eyes of a mysterious figure, we watch a young couple at the Myers home in Haddonfield, Illinois. The boyfriend is leaving the house, and this figure that's walking through the house picks up a clown mask and a large kitchen knife. this figure climbs the stairs and finds Judith Myers, a teenage girl, brushing her hair after her boyfriend has just left.
Topless.
What?
She's topless.
Yes, she is topless. The camera shows her.
Pretty.
The camera shows her shocked as she is repeatedly stabbed by her little brother.
She calls out Michael.
She does.
And at that point, you have to note, the first time watching this through, the audience didn't know that it was a little boy.
True.
She just says, Michael.
Yeah.
And it isn't until later when we find out that it's actually a child.
So
which makes it even scary.
So he exits the house and he is unmasked by his parents. Is revealed to be a 6-year-old boy named Michael Myers, standing silently in his clown costume holding the bloody knife. We then cut to Smiths Grove Sanitarium 15 years later, October 30th, 1978. Dr. Loomis and nurse Marion Chambers drive to the sanitarium to transport Michael Myers for a court hearing. Obviously, everything that happened, he's paying for. Loomis expresses his grave concern about Michael Myers' evil nature. The blackest eyes, he says. He looks into those eyes.
Right? Is this the first mention of the shade?
The shade, yes. When they arrive at the sanitarium, as they approach, they see patients wandering outside the facility in the rain. Loomis exits the car, and Michael attacks Marion, stealing the vehicle. It's assumed that this is Michael, I think, but it's obviously a hand that crashes through the window. Loomis realizes Michael has escaped and is headed for Haddonfield. We then cut to Haddonfield on Halloween Day, 1978, so it's a day later. Laurie Strode is introduced. We see Laurie, a quiet and responsible high school student, walking to school. She's talking to her father, who's a real estate agent, before she leaves, and he asks her to drop a key off at the abandoned Myers home. Michael, who is now an adult, wearing a white mask, watches her from the house. Tommy Doyle, on her way, little boy, on her way to school, catches up with her, and Laurie reassures him, who she's babysitting that night, so the boy has been telling her that he was being teased about the boogeyman.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting because then we see one of his little bullies that was making fun of him, which we'll talk about that kid later. The bully actually runs into Michael and grabs him, but lets him go. Kind of odd. But, it's weird because as archaic, really, and as monstrous as Michael Myers is, he's pretty smart about when he starts doing his kills. He's not just rampaging through the day.
I actually did note that in later scenes, it seems almost like he enjoys the cat and mouse.
Yeah.
He likes to be in the shadow and seen as the shape, and I'm assuming, being in his mind, getting a game plan, right?
Yep.
Of who is where and why are they there and how can I go about this? It's a total setup for the audience too.
Well,
we're in on it. We see, oh, he's back there.
You're right.
But the characters don't, and that adds to the psychology of it.
Yeah.
I think.
So you're right. So and continuing on, but on that note, Michael begins to follow Laurie and her friends, Annie Brackett and Linda Vanderklok. He watches them from a distance and drives past them in the stolen car and stands near various locations. There's that iconic peeking out from behind the bush, very iconic bush.
I actually put in my plot summary one of the best moments of just building the suspense is when the hardware store has been broken into, and Laurie's friend's father is on the police force and is explaining what's happening to Laurie and her friend in the car, and you can see Michael drive right behind them, just watching and noticing, and he's wearing the mask while he's driving.
Yep.
Wouldn't that I would think as a bystander of a robbery and trying to figure out what's going on, to see someone drive by with a mask on, but it's such a subtle way of saying I'm still here.
Well, that, and I almost kind of feel like that's for the audience. We see that in Scream too, which we'll talk about when we get to that film. But it's interesting that these killers are walking around during the day in their full getup.
Yeah,
because you'd think cops would be like, "Hey!"
But this is Halloween.
That's a good point. Yeah.
This is there's something to think of. As maybe it's not the night yet of Halloween, but it is the day of Halloween. So maybe they the thought is that they write it off as, he's a 20-something that's still going to go around on Halloween. But I love the goosebumps that I got seeing him drive by, and he's not, here's a knife. He's not intimidating, but he's intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So Loomis then finally arrives in Haddonfield and finds Sheriff Brackett and explains that Michael has escaped, and he believes that Michael has returned to Haddonfield. Loomis and Brackett then visit the abandoned Myers house. They find signs that Michael has been there, including a dead dog, suggesting that he has been feeding on animals.
Well, I have two things that I noted in between that. In the traveling from the mental institution to the Loomis's house, we see the aftermath that Michael has killed someone who's a mechanic.
Yep.
There's a mechanic's car, and this is how Michael gets the iconic mechanic suit that he wears. I'm kind of bummed we didn't get to see it. We see the aftermath, and you kind of have to connect the dots a little bit. It's not, I feel like some modern horror kind of slaps you in the face with, this is the plot point.
Yeah.
This was such a subtle, oh, that's how he got the mechanic's suit. The other thing that I noted was, when it comes to Loomis, immediately after he notes that Michael has escaped, he goes directly to the Myers house.
Yep.
Now, we know from what I guess you'd call retcon later that obviously it's his childhood home, but that he's related to Lori. But in this story, we don't know that.
Right.
The audience does not know that Lori is his younger sister. It's just interesting to me that this psychologist immediately goes back to his childhood house.
Yep.
I'm curious why you think he did that versus why didn't he go to the school? This was a young boy, yes, but he immediately goes, he's going to go back to the Myers house.
Well, we do see him stalking Lori at school. Like, she looks out her window and she sees out.
But Loomis doesn't go there.
Well,
I'm saying Loomis goes directly to the Myers house. And why he would think that that's what Michael would do.
Right. Well, it's interesting because he says in the beginning that he spent however long, 8 years trying to figure him out, and then last half of that trying to put him back behind bars. I think at that point, they're more concerned about putting him away than trying to figure out who he is. They've already been through that. So, but we get to Halloween night. It's time for babysitting, and Lori and Annie, so Lori babysits Tommy Doyle at the Doyle house, while Annie is babysitting Lindsay at the Wallace house across the street.
She's a terrible babysitter.
What's funny, though, I got to say, I think if I'm just going to put myself in the shoes of somebody going to school back then.
Yeah.
And obviously in this fictional universe, but I found Annie to be so funny and quirky. I think she is a woman that I would want to date, like in that universe. Like if I were going high, she's just so funny and quirky. Like, she made me chuckle.
I'm going to quote my notes.
Okay.
Annie is a terrible friend.
That's funny.
Very involved and completely oblivious to the people around her.
Sure.
So it's funny. Again, this is what how we're different, but how we're the same. I found myself so annoyed by Annie's character.
That's fair. So meanwhile, while both Lori and Annie are preparing to, or they're starting to babysit for the evening, Linda and her boyfriend Bob plan to use the empty Wallace house for a romantic evening. Michael has been watching the babysitters closely from the shadows, waiting for his moment to strike.
And I've got to back up a little bit about Bob.
Okay.
I don't know if you picked up on it, but Bob's not a good guy.
Why do you say that?
There is a particular line that I wrote down here, and she's talking about how she's babysitting Lindsay, that she's over babysitting, and he states something along the lines of, well, maybe we can invite Lindsay over too.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we won't use the word here, but it was very much leaning towards that word.
Yep.
And I didn't like Bob from that exact moment. And then Bob's just a straight up tool.
Yeah.
What's the girlfriend's name that he's with? Linda?
Linda, yeah.
Yeah, he's so mean to Linda. So mean to Linda. And the fact that when she's talking about how Annie is babysitting Lindsay, he immediately talks about inviting Lindsay over.
Yeah. Well, and to comment on that little sexcapade, if you will,
Mhm.
was it weird that they were having sex next to a lit pumpkin?
I noticed that too. This isn't just a candlelit,
Right.
like it's a lit jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, obviously it's the 70s. They're not going to necessarily show them going crazy or whatever. But, man, I could think of some other times that, like, it's been pretty hot and heavy. I don't know if I'd want to be doing that next to a lit pumpkin. That just seemed weird to me.
I mean,
I
you
get
know,
it's Halloween, but
yeah, I noticed it, but that there's candle lit is supposed to be romantic. This is probably Bob's only way of being romantic.
yeah.
More than likely, they stole it from someone else. They're totally not good people.
Yeah.
See what I did there?
Yeah. All right. So we get to our first death. Annie in the car. All right. Annie leaves Lindsay with Lori so she can pick up her boyfriend, Paul.
Yeah. Well,
And again, these scenes between with her talking to Paul on the phone, and I chuckled. I thought it was funny, but
I don't know. Maybe it's the difference between men and women. I'm like, aren't you supposed to be babysitting? You've plopped Lindsay in front of a scary movie, and you've just gone about your own little world.
yeah. Well, no, she didn't plop her in front of a scary movie. She left her with Lori.
Well, initially she
And
was
then,
watching, yeah, and then because she wants to hook up with her boyfriend, she comes up with the scheme of, "I'll make it so that you can watch this movie with Tommy,
Yeah.
and get your." But again, you're not really actively babysitting. She's doing anything and everything she can to not be around Lindsay.
Yeah. So after leaving Lindsay with Lori, she heads to her car, only to find that her car doors are locked. Returning with the keys, she gets in and notices the windows are fogged. Michael then suddenly appears from the backseat, strangling her before slashing her throat. First human kill in the movie.
And I'm all about it.
Well, and that's probably why they wrote her that way, to
Probably.
bother you, to those, like, all right, we're done with her.
And then that is something too that there's making them be human. They're not perfect, but you do see the dichotomy between how Linda and Annie are and how Lori is. Lori is very more straight-laced, almost should say goody two-shoes. She's the reliable friend. It's here, I'm going to drop Lindsay off for you, and I'm going to go hang out and have fun.
Yep. So we then cut to Linda and Bob arriving at the Wallace house. After drinking and fooling around, Bob goes to the kitchen for a beer. Michael ambushes him, lifting him off the ground and impaling him into the wall with a knife. So then after Michael kills Bob, Michael proceeds upstairs, and Michael is wearing a sheet and Bob's glasses. He pretends to be Bob, entering the bedroom where Linda waits.
See something you like?
See anything you like.
See anything you like?
I believe the line is "Stay away from her, you bitch." No, I'm just kidding. And that was even wrong. We'll get into that too, but
Yeah, it was.
scream. When she calls Lori on the phone, Michael is strangling her with a telephone cord while Lori listens, thinking it's a prank. I would probably think so too. But it would be
Halloween night, yeah.
You're right, but how sick are your friends, or how sick do you think your friends are? I'm not gonna call, like, as much as I play jokes on my friends, and as much as, like, I fool around like that, I'm not gonna call my friend while I'm having sex and be like, yeah. That just seemed really odd to think that it was a prank, but I mean, I get it.
But I think that lends back into how they treat Lori.
Yeah.
They're not good friends. They're not good friends. And if that is your first thought, if one of my best friends called me and I heard that noise on the phone, my initial thought would not be, oh, they're pranking me, or oh, they're having sex, or something like that. It would be, what's wrong?
Yep.
It's just, to me, it's telling of how Lori's been treated in the friendship.
Worried about the strange call, Lori heads over to the Wallace house. Inside, she finds Annie's body sprawled out on the bed with Judith Meyer's headstone above her. Linda and Bob's corpses are also discovered, horrifying Lori. This is at the point where Lori gets the first attack from Michael. She's backing away in terror, and Michael emerges from the shadows and slashes her arm. She falls down the stairs, but manages to escape. That's a pretty nasty fall.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting how in films they will use falling down the stairs to either just be injured or they just die completely. And obviously this one, she gets up and runs away and is fine. But
She's also a high school student.
yes. So at this point, Lori is running from the Wallace house back to the house that she's babysitting for, the Doyle house. She returns back to the Doyle house after much struggle of getting in, calling for Tommy to unlock the door. She races in and locks the door. She tells Tommy and Lindsay to hide as she fends off Michael. He breaks into the house, and Lori uses various household items, including a kitchen needle, a coat hanger, and to temporarily incapacitate him.
I will say the hanger scene. I noted she has enough time to pull that hanger to make something for self-defense.
Yeah.
He's taking a very long time
Yep.
to get into the closet.
Yep.
Good for Lori, but it is kind of an odd,
Sure.
I get it. Part of that is the version of storytelling in these kinds of movies from the 70s. But I thought, well, at least she's got time to make herself a weapon.
Now, despite her efforts, Michael keeps coming, and Lori then stabs him with a knife, thinking she's killed him, but he rises again. Now, at this point, Dr. Loomis comes to the rescue. Now, this I have to make a comment on. This is something I've seen this movie 1,000 times, and I don't remember this, and I laughed so hard. Loomis comes up to like the neighborhood, and it might have been a little bit before this part. Loomis comes up. He's looking around all serious. He finds the vehicle that was stolen, and he smiles. So he's like, he smiles so goofy. I'm like, I don't remember that at all, and it was completely out of character for Loomis because he is always so stoic, so serious, only cares about Michael, only talks about Michael. I mean, we don't know anything about Loomis other than he's Michael's doctor. And so to see him was just funny to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Loomis arrives at the Doyle house after seeking the stolen car. He finds Lori and Michael struggling. As Michael attacks Lori, Loomis shoots him multiple times, causing him to fall off of the balcony.
Really quick, refresh my memory. Was this shooting and him falling off the balcony? That was after Lori had told the kids it's okay, and we're safe, and then he shows up behind her.
Well, no. So at this point, it's at the end where Loomis is in the room, and she said he shoots him and he falls off the balcony.
Okay, so telling the kids it's okay hasn't happened yet.
It may have.
I just have something to say about it.
Go ahead.
To me, it's interesting in that scene where she's telling the kids it's okay, and of course, Tommy is saying, was that the boogeyman? It's got to be the boogeyman. She's saying, no, it's okay, and trying to get the kids to safety. There's a fight that happens, and it's so brief, but the mask from Michael gets pulled up.
Oh, yes.
And it looks like Michael's face is deformed. It was so quick. It was so quick. But to me, it looked like he had a deformed face, reminding me of like Jason. But we don't have a storyline of why his face would be deformed.
Well, and we don't know that either. It could have been the actor, and again, we'll get into that. But
True.
and Tony Moran played that part, but we'll see. So,
Okay.
When Loomis looks over the balcony after shooting him multiple times, he looks over the balcony and discovers that Michael's body is gone. His disappearance leaves Lori sobbing and Loomis staring into the night, fully aware that the terror is not over. The film ends with a montage of shots of Haddonfield, accompanied by Michael's heavy breathing, suggesting that he could be anywhere. This tightly crafted film builds suspense through pacing, music, and Michael's silent, unstoppable presence, solidifying it as a horror classic. Couple of note things that I said about this film, just a couple here. The movie is a slow burn. This is a
Very
slow pace.
Very.
I don't know how successful this would be today.
Yeah.
I'm thinking back again. We'll review this one too, but I'm thinking in a violent nature. You weren't
I wouldn't say it was that as bad, but yeah.
okay.
My question that I brought up prior to Lori getting attacked or even possibly seeing Michael, do you think that Lori in and of herself was depressed?
No, I honestly think you talk about her friends and how they're bad friends.
Yeah.
But it goes between real. This is where you have to kind of suspend. I don't want to say suspend belief, but it's more like okay, her friends are a little bit more outgoing. They're a little bit more. They're more obviously sexually active. This, on paper, makes her the grounded final girl.
Mm-hmm. And I did note that too. It's very cliche.
Yeah.
It's a very cliche. These teens did drugs, had sex. I'm assuming there was some yes, she's like, get me a beer and everything. There's alcohol involved. They're the ones that get killed. She's the one that survives. It's a very cliche moment. I just picked up on, I felt a little ho-hum from her.
Yeah.
But before even the attacks happened or anything, she has a crush on a schoolmate.
Yep.
And it's, well, he probably wouldn't like me. They're just a little Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
A little Eeyore. And I just thought, I wonder if this was placed in today, that she would be labeled as somebody who is already a little depressed.
Maybe. But if you look at a film from today, say Thanksgiving, Nell Verlacky's character, the final girl, if you will, she was kind of quiet and quirky like Lori.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't take her as being depressed.
No.
I honestly think it's a mixture of everything. It's again, they're trying to make her the stereotypical final girl, but then also it's partially, I think it also too, it's partially Jamie Lee Curtis's personality.
True.
And what she brought to the character. And I don't say this in a bad way. I just feel like possibly Jamie Lee Curtis's voice could be a little bit ho-hummy, like kind of.
Her intonation.
Yeah, and again, that's not a bad thing. But
No. And that's why I kind of comment about it is, do we think it was an acting choice? Do we think it was part of her personality coming through? Do we think it was, it was something that with this buildup of who Lori is and where she's at in life. And, even the iconic scene of where she's sitting in class and she already kind of looks like she's just ho-hum. And then she looks over and sees him watching from outside. It just seemed like, it's that whole, hey, teens, don't have sex, don't do drugs, you're going to get killed. But she's kind of sad about it. She's kind of like
But is she sad, or is she just a well-rounded teenager to where she doesn't necessarily need things like drugs, alcohol, sex?
Or maybe she's ho-hum just because her friends are not good friends.
But also, I think I didn't necessarily need drugs and alcohol. Like I was a good kid. We were both church kids. So I'm not saying Lori's a church kid, but we grew up in that atmosphere. Mm-hmm. So it's like maybe it's just different for her. So let's move on to the interesting things of note for this film. So these when we're going to talk about the interesting things of note, just so you guys know, it's kind of things, little facts behind the scenes that we have found on the internet. The truth to it, we hope it's true. But it's just kind of in our research.
The internet, you just never quite know, right?
Yep. The film was originally called The Babysitter Murders. That's interesting. Director John Carpenter's then girlfriend co-wrote the screenplay with him. As the director, John Carpenter often gets all of the credit for Halloween, but he didn't do it alone. Deborah Hill, a producer on the film, and Carpenter's then girlfriend, actually co-wrote the film with him. She also helped write some of the sequel films, including Halloween 2, which released in 1981. Now, this is interesting because a lot of co-creators, co-writers, they got the shaft back then.
Oh, yeah.
Bill Finger is one that I always go to. A lot of people go to Bob Kane as their creator of Batman. But Bill Finger did a lot of the work. Stan Lee, the same thing with Captain America. People leave out Steve Ditko. They give these people all the credit, and they deserve credit, but so do these other people that put in work for it. But it's nice with characters like Superman. We get to see Jerry. It's not just Jerry Siegel or Joe Shuster. It's both of them, Joel Shuster. So yeah, I'm glad that people now are starting to recognize. Well, I don't necessarily know. She might have gotten more of the credit all the way through. I don't know. I wasn't alive back then. But especially now, people have given Deborah Hill a lot, and that's a big deal. The original screenplay was written in 2 weeks. Once the movie was a go, executive producers Irwin Yablans wanted to get it out before the titular holiday in 1978, so Halloween. The writers turned the screenplay in about 2 weeks, and the filming took just 22 days. The production team had a low budget of $300,000. Because of the tight budget, they couldn't hire major stars, and Carpenter himself would put together a now iconic score to save money. So not only did he direct it and partially write it, he did the score as well, which I think that's awesome. So Haddonfield is a real town, but it is not in Illinois. Haddonfield was inspired by and named after Deborah Hill's hometown in New Jersey, but the film takes place in Illinois. The real Myers house isn't anywhere near New Jersey nor in Illinois. The actual house used in this film is in South Pasadena, California. Originally built at 709 Meridian Avenue, the structure was set to be demolished in the late 1980s, but was saved, designated as a landmark by the city and relocated to its current address, 1000 Mission Street. Now, for the viewers out there, I'm going to put this in. Katie and I actually visited this house. Was it 2022? January was your birthday trip.
Was it 18?
Oh, was it? I can't remember. We'll verify the year, but I remember it was one of our trips we did, and we saw a lot of locations. One of which was the Halloween house, and I want to say,
22.
okay, yeah, it looked like when we were there, it almost looked like it was across the street from because they picked that house up and they moved it.
Mm-hmm.
It almost looked like it was next to or across the street from that little store.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
Yeah. I can't verify that. I'd have to look into it, but yeah. So, another interesting thing of note, Michael Myers didn't actually speak until the 2007 Rob Zombie film. After 29 years of mostly wearing a mask and silently stalking his victims, Michael Myers had his first line in Halloween 2007, which was, again, the Rob Zombie remake. He spoke next in Halloween 2, 2009. Jamie Lee Curtis landed a lead role in the film because of her famous mom. Curtis was cast in the original Halloween because Hill thought having the daughter of actress Janet Leigh, or actor now, I know that's a big deal. Actor Janet Leigh would help the low-budget film at the box office.
Do you know who that was?
Yes, I'm getting to that. So Deborah Hill stated, I knew casting Jamie Lee would be great for publicity for the film because her mother was in Psycho. At least I knew she had the genes and could scream well. Her character name, Laurie Strode, was also based on one of Carpenter's ex-girlfriends. Michael Myers was played by 5 men in this film. So this is what I was talking about earlier. Will Sandon played the younger version of Michael Myers at age 6. Now, the primary actor for Michael Myers was Nick Castle. He was the one that did all the walking around, did all the stalking, did all the killing, most of the killing. But then you were talking about earlier with the mask being lifted up. That was played by, and this seems odd to me, that was played by a man named Tony Moran. He was the quote-unquote face of Michael Myers, unmasked. So Tommy Lee Wallace was the production designer in the film. In the scene where Michael Myers was attacking Laurie in the closet, Wallace knew there was a specific point in which the closet had to be broken. That is probably really hard to instruct people on where to hit. I would say, especially if it's something very specific to where you had to start. Because, I mean, he had to slam, break, you know. So Wallace, knowing where this was, he actually put the suit on and had the scene shot with him as Michael Myers. And finally, Jim Winburn, who is the first Michael Myers actually to pass away. I had the opportunity to meet him I want to say 2017. Very nice guy. Jim Winburn did the stunt where Michael falls out of the window near the end of the film. He passed away in November 2022. Very sweet man. I've actually met all 5 original actors that played Michael. All have been very nice, very sweet. Carpenter never wanted the Michael Myers saga to continue. This is the most interesting thing I found. In a 2014 interview with Deadline, he said that he didn't return to direct the sequels because he didn't think there was any more story to tell beyond the first film. He said, all of my ideas were for the first Halloween. There shouldn't have been any more, he said. I'm flattered by the fact that people want to remake them, but they remake everything these days, so it doesn't make it that much more special. Carpenter ended up writing the first sequel, Halloween 2, and he's an executive producer on the others. The franchise, this is where I was referring to. The franchise was almost turned into an anthology series. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, 1982, which released in 1982, stands out because there was no Michael, no Laurie, no Loomis, no Haddonfield. Carpenter and Hill thought it would be interesting if there were an anthology of horror films where the common thread was that they all occurred on Halloween night, but Season of the Witch didn't live up to the box office numbers prior to the first 2 films. Fans were also confused as to why Michael Myers wasn't in this film, and they were upset. So Michael Myers made his return 6 years later in Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. I find that really interesting because I know this is almost where it's like you're at a fork in the road, because both slashers with character killers like Michael himself and anthology films or TV series, Goosebumps, Creepshow, Masters of Horror, Tales from the Crypt, all great. American Horror Stories, phenomenal. And it's interesting that they wanted to go that route, but it's almost like but like the fans are like, nah, man, we want to see what's up with Michael. We want him. Like,
I found it interesting that the gentleman said that there was no more story to tell.
Yeah.
Because one of my notes that I had was, shockingly, we don't know that Laurie is related to Michael until the second
true
movie.
And there's
several plot holes here that I've written down of just, well, why? Well, why? Well, why is he attacking Laurie then?
Yeah.
What's the purpose? She was not in his family home.
Yep.
When he initially was stalking her. So I have to agree, or I have to disagree with him that there's a ton more story that was not in this first movie.
Right. Well, that, and it's interesting because it's supposedly it's out there that Carpenter didn't want them to be brother and sister. And obviously we'll probably get more into this when we review the second one, but I'm like, how do you not do that with them? Like,
right. How are they connected then that he wants to kill her?
Yeah. I mean,
what's the purpose?
That's very odd to me.
Yeah.
And the last little thing of note that I have here is the little boy that Michael Myers grabs in the schoolyard is Mickey Yablans, son of executive producer Irwin Yablans. So one way to get your kid in the film. All right, so now we're on to the death count. How many people do you think died in this film?
4?
You're close. Yeah. Yes, but I have 5.
Oh.
We have Judith Myers.
Yep.
We have the mechanic off screens. We don't see that happen. We see his dead body. We have Annie. We have Bob. And we have Linda.
Yep.
So it's basically all of Laurie's friends. I can't imagine.
And a mechanic. They're as close.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. The mechanic off screen. So that's
that's what I'm saying. It's her friends and then a mechanic.
Yeah. Now, to be honest, I can't imagine losing all of my best friends in one night. That would be awful. Just awful.
To one person, too.
To one person.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, hey, if Michael's coming after me, I'm coming after him. You killed my friends, man.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're gonna move into. All right, so we've watched this film together. We there's so much we could pull from this, but Katie, what's your favorite scene of the film?
My favorite scene, it's a part 1 and part 2, but it's the same character.
Okay.
Bob's death.
Okay.
Him getting stabbed and stuck on the wall.
Yep.
Chef's kiss. Amazing. Loved it. He deserved it. Was fine to see it happen. Later, when Laurie is actually in the house, when his Bob's corpse falls and scares her, that additional here he is again moment with Michael Myers being in the shadow and being the shape. That was my favorite.
Yep. I'd have to say my favorite scene was the closet attack. It's iconic. It's honestly kind of the most suspenseful part of the film, I felt, because one of them at least, because she's hiding in the closet. Obviously these days that's
The
kind of
closest
stereotypical,
proximity they've had.
right? But it's like you hear the click, 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 click. Now I wish I was sitting there. I'm like, Mom, why are you like? Because I feel like you hear that a lot, like coming out of it. I'm like, all right, lady, like we kind of need you to. Shh.
Yeah, yeah.
But my favorite death, I will agree with you, is Bob. It was.
Well, I have a different best death. That
Oh.
was my favorite scene.
Okay.
The best kill and the best death, 100%, hands down, the sister in the opening scene.
Okay.
It sets it up.
Yeah.
And I literally put opening sister being killed. It gives you an oh shit to start with.
Yep.
The killer is actually a child. And the child is dressed up as a clown, and you're getting that kill through his point of view.
Sure.
You've got a lot of things that are psychologically, triggering, and creepy and spooky. And you kind of add the aspect to, he knows his sister just had sex.
Yep.
He knows his sister sitting there with, being topless and combing her hair. It's iconic. And it dives you right into what the Myers family dynamic is.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. What about yours?
I gotta say, Bob. It was funny, entertaining. It was quick, but there's just like, there was so much buildup. Like he kind of knew something was gonna happen to him,
Mm-hmm.
but Michael comes out of it. He just grabs him, but then it's just one.
Yep.
And I thought that was so funny.
The energy between the two men, I felt too.
Well,
That like, I'm sticking you to the wall.
sure, but also like it's the way that Michael looks at him.
Yeah.
Like, he's doing this,
Yeah.
and it's almost like I almost wish we had seen that with his first kill. Like it's almost like that kill needed to be, because it's almost like, hey, I just killed somebody.
Well,
Like,
wouldn't it have been cool if in that first opening scene where they take the mask off, the clown mask off of him, and as a child, if he would just go,
oh yeah,
But
good point.
that would be
Yeah.
yeah.
I wasn't even thinking in that statement. That I was like, oh yeah, wait, his first kill was 6, so it would be kind of weird to hoist somebody up there. But maybe his first kill as an adult, or like,
But still to do that like tilt of the head, kind of
Yeah.
like when a dog is like,
Yeah.
yeah.
yep. So, all right, so now we're gonna go on to our rating system here. So, as we mentioned, kind of in our intro episode, some people, they like to rate films by letter grade. Some people like to rate them by number. Some people like to rate them by stars. We're going to go ahead and do all three. So I'm going to say, well, you know what? Or do you want to go letter grade to letter grade and then number to number? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I give this, now see, before I get into rating, it's interesting because I have to ask myself these questions. Like I've watched this since I was a kid. All right. So of course I'm going to love this movie. Of course I'm going to have a little bit of a bias, but I also have to ask myself, like I said, would this work today with the pacing? I will give you an example. A friend of mine watched this for the first time at literally 41 years old. I remember he was messaging us in our group chat and he was like, dude, does this get any better? What's the hype? I don't understand. And I didn't know how to answer that, because it's like, well, sure, but you've already been exposed to so much that isn't this slow, because it is slow. I mean, you can't deny that it was slow. I love it. But, it was like, all right, we are going to eventually see some kills in this film, aren't we? Like, you know what I mean? But again, that's not a complaint. Again, because I know how this lays out. I know how the franchise lays out. So with that, I gave it an A-.
Okay.
I feel like that's a fair grade to give it.
Yeah.
It's, it all kind of depends on what you're looking for. But all around, just everything I know versus, how it further along goes. Now, again, I know Halloween, and again, we'll get into them all. There's 5 different timelines, and that's annoying in itself. But for this film by itself and knowing what the sequel is, because it's all the same night, I'm going to go with an A-.
It's interesting you say that because I gave it an A- as well.
Okay.
I specifically noted, I think that I would have given it a better letter grade if it could have been a true standalone.
Yeah.
So when you were saying that about the gentleman that said that there's no more story, BS. There were a lot of plot holes. If we had the storyline of Lori being an adopted sister, and that's the reason why, is that he already killed one sister. I realize that in the Rob Zombie version, he also killed stepfather and mother, and is basically the whole family. So it's to Michael Myers, it's closing the loop by getting Lori, but we didn't get that in this,
Right.
So that's why I docked down some grades, and then I specifically I was gonna do an A, and then I thought, no, I'm putting an A-, and you may laugh at me for this, but I put he shouldn't have killed the dog.
I get that. I mean, it was the 70. Well, it's hard to say because
I get that it's a way of like neutralizing the security system of the day, but you didn't have to see it. I have a soft spot for animals.
sure.
The moment that you kill the dog, kill the animals, it could have been alluded to a little bit better than what it was. I get shock value. It took away from the story for me.
I don't think it did anything for the story for me.
Yeah.
I didn't think it helped it, but I didn't think it hurt it. The only thing I will say to counter what you're saying is it shows that he's more ruthless. It shows that he's more heartless. It shows that he's psychotic.
Right.
I feel like if in, like, let's say a domestic violence situation, like, let's just say, for example, that I don't even like to say, like, a couple is getting divorced or something and they're just beating the crap out of each other or whatever. Again, I don't want to bring up any sour memories. This is just for example. I wonder if in like those kind of films or like whatever, would the dog still die? Like they're not going after the dog. Like they'll want to keep the dog, but they're not going to want to kill him. Whereas somebody like Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, whatever, if they want to kill, they're going to kill the dog. They're going to kill whatever. So
Right.
I don't know. I was okay. I won't say that I was okay with it, but I don't think it really helped nor hurt the film.
Yeah.
What do you give this by a number?
By number, I gave it an 8.
Interesting.
My note to that was I just want $1 for every time I heard the word totally.
I gave it a 9. I don't know. I didn't think it was. I still kind of felt like it was in that range. Not perfect, but it was very much all right for a takeoff. It was fine. It was great. And then I gave it 4.5 stars.
I gave it 4.
Okay.
I said that there's just some plot holes that were, to me, distracting.
Sure.
Because for me, I'm watching horror or any other story, and I'm thinking, well, why would that character want to do that?
Yep.
What's the motivation here? What's the plan, Phil? If we have Modern Family fans here, and there was for this standalone, not for the whole series, but for this standalone 1978 Halloween, I was left going, but why did he even care about Lori?
Yeah.
And that took a full star away from me.
Sure. All right. So other than just our rating systems of what we have another rating system we are going to rate films by, or television series by, and that is the replay value. Now, I've explained this before, and I'll probably explain it again, but there could be films that are masterpieces that you never want to see again. There could be films that are absolute garbage that nobody likes, that you just think is entertaining and colorful and fun, and you can...
Your comfort movie.
Yeah, it's a comfort movie. You could throw it on while you take a nap on a Sunday afternoon or while you're trying to get something done around the house. It's one of those that you just throw on. So we have the replay value rankings as will watch repeatedly as like your best, and it goes down to likely, neutral, unlikely, and I'll never watch this again. So, Katie, as far as replay value goes, what do you give this?
I put will watch repeatedly.
Yep.
Which it might sound odd because I gave them a lower grade than, or they gave the movie a lower grade than you did, but I have watched it repeatedly, so I had to be honest. And I would watch it again. It is iconic. There's iconic music. There's iconic scenes. Um, in its own way, it's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
In its own way, it's the start of this deeper, darker talk about mental illness and mental health and how it runs in families, how it affects families. So yeah, I did like it. I will watch it and have watched it repeatedly.
Yep.
But I will say there's flaws.
Yep. I also say that I will watch it. Will watch it repeatedly. Every Halloween, almost every Halloween, if I'm home and I'm whether I'm getting work done or whether I'm just wanting to sit and watch it, and I know I've probably driven you nuts for this. I have to watch the Holy Trinity that is, in my opinion, that is Halloween, and that's Halloween 1, Halloween 2, and H2O. That is my Halloween. Like,
And we'll get into it, but H2O is not a fun experience for me.
and I don't understand why not, but again, we all get into that. But yeah, it's definitely up there for replay value, the highest ranking. But all right. Well, is there anything else you want to say about this movie?
I think that if you haven't seen it by now, you've gotten some spoilers.
Yep.
I do recommend it. I know I kind of watch things out of order by seeing the Rob Zombie version first.
Sure.
But it's an iconic starting point, and you can see the mask and know exactly who he is. You can hear the music and know exactly the storyline that we're going to. It jump-started Jamie Lee Curtis's career, who she is phenomenal. And I don't know of another movie that we could have started the podcast with.
I agree. We kind of went between this and Texas Chainsaw, which we'll be doing in another episode. But I felt like Halloween is a springboard and starting point, like you said. Yeah, I'd say that. So,
Well, let us know in the comments what your grades are.
yeah, give us your grades. Send us a message. Send us an email. We would love for you to follow us on our socials. We are on Facebook, Threads, X, formerly Twitter. Obviously YouTube if you're watching.
And remember to be respectful and kind to each other and to yourself.
And to us.
And be prepared that, if we find something funny or maybe it's a piece of information we didn't find in our research, we may bring that up on our next recording. So let us know what your opinions are, what facts you may know, and as always, let us know what you may want us to review.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear from you, and again, something we dislike, you may love and want us to review, and we need to revisit it. So,
all right, guys. Well, thank you for watching and listening to another episode of The Couple That Slays Together. I am Brandon.
I'm Katie, and until next time, enjoy the horror.
The couple that slays together.